Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Dre. And for this one, I'm just going to hop right into it. Um, no doubt a lot of you have probably seen the news that the Supreme Court has been making some rulings this week. I know there was one involving an LGB uh, case, but the ones I want to speak about are about the repeal of affirmative action and the court striking down the student loan debt relief that was proposed by Joe. So I guess I'll start with the affirmative action first, because honestly, to me, these rulings come from the same place. And for those who don't know, affirmative action is basically a set of policies that was meant to, I guess you would say, create opportunities or allot and reserve opportunities for Black individuals who had historically been barred from participation in such things such as higher ed, certain jobs, so on and so forth. What the Supreme Court did was they struck down affirmative action in higher ed admissions. So effectively, what this means is there's going to be fewer Black folks who may be able to get a break to go to certain colleges and universities. It effectively is closing the door for a lot of folks. And the thing of it is this: in terms of affirmative action, I really, I really feel that the policy itself is incomplete. The policy isn't bad, but it doesn't go far enough. It wasn't enough done, in short. Affirmative action really truly needed to be paired with reparations, in my honest opinion, to have that maximum effect. Because, as I've said so often before, we have a system which is basically like a game of Monopoly, and everybody else has been able to go around the board dozens, hundreds of times, and you just dealt me a couple hundred, and I ain't made it past go yet. Um, I know for folks who aren't Black, and even for some Black folks who may be from a higher class, it can be um, a bit jarring to hear. Some people think it's overblown, but it's not. It truly is not. Um, a lot of folks look at white supremacy and the results that some folks have been able to get in the country, and they point to people who you can kind of, I guess you would say, or be examples of Black excellence, and it creates this narrative of you can, if they made it, you can. And there's a there's an iota of truth in that, but there's a flip side that everybody loves to disregard. White supremacy is not a wall, it's a net. There are a lot of people who find success, and even to a large extent, myself included, there's a lot of people who find success that probably shouldn't have in regards to that system. But just because a few are able to break through while the rest remain in a particular socioeconomic condition does not mean that it's a failing of the individual. Systems are their outcomes. They do what they're designed to do. So just because there's a few people that trickle through, just because there are a few people that reach some of the highest heights of society, that doesn't mean that society is fixed. And when it comes to affirmative action in higher ed, um, I mean, I think this makes it all the more where, one, the policy should be restored, but all the more the drumbeat should be louder for reparations. you want to shut the door in my face. When I'll be honest, it felt as a young black professional who has attained a modicum of success, it feels like everything in this nation is trying to tell me about my experience without knowing about my experience, without acknowledging the long history of discrimination, without acknowledging just the hurdles and obstacles that folks have to overcome. Public policy picks winners and losers. And that's the God's honest truth of it. Whether you want to believe it or not, how hard, that's not to say that you don't work hard to get certain outcomes, but public policy can magnify and make it so that the effort that you put in gets your result here or it gets your result here. And then I guess to move on to the second piece, which was the striking down of the student debt relief. It's no secret how I feel about the current president. And the one good policy that he proposed for the court to strike it down like this is disheartening for a lot of folks. I can say without a shadow of a doubt, it probably were folks that were dependent on that. Honestly, it was a lot like the government made a promise and went back on it. But most of all, it ties into the rationale for that first one. I feel that policy, the spirit of the policy, I agree with. I feel it is too little and not enough. And I feel it was done or attempted wrong. I feel like there's a better case to be made under the Higher Education Act versus the HEROES Act, which they submitted this under. But at the heart of it all is a rogue court is being allowed to stand. A rogue court is being allowed to shape America right now. And the rulings and the policy implications that the rulers are having is frightening. And I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I want to say it in these terms. You know, a lot of folks, if it wasn't for certain opportunities, wouldn't be who they are. I know a lot of folks put negative connotations on certain things, but that policy would have made a world of difference for a lot of folks in my generation. 10, 20K, that's a damn good dent in a lot of folks' student loans. And when you put it out there like that, you have folks signing up, folks are anticipating it, folks are looking forward to it, and then to rip it back when it's a policy that overwhelmingly the majority of the American public agrees with. And it's the policy, while a little bit shaky and hasn't been done on this scale, there's actually been other presidents, from my understanding, that have used the same justification to forgive some student debt. So once again, when you look at who the debt holders are, it mostly affects Black and brown bodies. And it's another, if affirmative action is closing the door, student loan debt is essentially throwing you in a box in the ocean and throwing some concrete blocks on it. It is trying to put you and relegate you to a permanent underclass. And for every person of color, especially, but I feel like anybody who's affected with it and believes in it, I feel like we really should be putting pressure on the administration. That part of it, it isn't over, and that the administration could make another challenge and invoke the I believe it's ooh, it's escaping me now. I mentioned it earlier, but there's an act from I believe it's like Student Loan Act of 1965, which can be invoked, which gives even though not Student Loan Act, the higher well, it's an act. I'm sorry. Basically, it was an act that was signed into law that gives the federal government, is speaking in the terms of the executive branch, wide latitude and authority over the student loan debt, which it holds. Being that most student loan debt is held by the federal government, they should be able to do whatever they want with it. It's no different than when you loan money out to somebody and you say, hey, look, don't worry about it. I really feel that if the administration goes at it again, I would like to see them stop with the means testing. Means testing is a way to make a policy less popular, politically speaking, than it rightfully should be. And it polarizes it. And I feel that government should work for everybody. This is a policy that would disproportionately affect Black folks and poor folks. But that being said, if somebody was well off and for some reason had student loan debt, I really wouldn't give a shit if we forgave their student loan debt. I don't really feel that student loan debt should be a thing to begin with. Things such as education is an investment in your populace. It's an investment that is going to carry some type of favor that's going to yield a return. And the way that we do it in this country is completely Byzantine, draconian, and it's really all for the preservation of class. Frankly, the myth of ascension in America fuels a lot of bad policy because there's a lot of people who feel like they're going to be millionaires tomorrow, and they just ain't got it today. And the reality is, nah, you're not going to be. Statistically speaking, that is. And that's not me poo-pooing on anybody's dream who has a dream to try to get there or do whatever, chase your dreams. But know that statistically speaking, most people, probably 90% of people, won't ever reach $100,000 from income from a job in America. And that's okay. But that's not to say that the investment made in higher ed, making it easier for folks to go get an education, secondary education, or continue a secondary education, shouldn't be pursued. Like, we need folks. We have several high-paying jobs now that we import folks from around the world every year, when there's Americans that are here that could use that opportunity, that it would, those type of jobs that they were able to get the education or training for will completely change their family trajectory. And that's undeniable. Like, there's several, we import like hundreds of thousands of people every year to fill these jobs. They're jobs that are vacant, that are well paid, but we don't have the people with the skills, at least not enough of them. And that's completely on the government. There's obviously the government wants to keep wages low. The government wants to keep people dependent in a lot of respects. And we as a citizenry, I believe that we should always keep heat on the government. In my estimation, the election of Joe was probably one of the worst things in this regard. He promised you nothing. Stood up on stage and proudly said nothing will fundamentally change. Well, I'm gonna vote for you. If we can all acknowledge that things weren't going great, why why would nothing changing be good? It'd be something to say if nation was on a great course at that time, but we weren't, and even to date we aren't. And the government and this administration in particular, um, in my estimation, has given a big fu to Black folks. And honestly, you can make the case that, especially the folks back in my home state in South Carolina, put Humpty Dumpty back together and getting carried him across the finish line. And that's the thanks they get. And I feel that we have to really, truly put pressure on the government, on this administration in particular. The quote unquote claim was get him elected and move him left. I don't think you get to be nearly 100 years old and have an open mind at that point in time. But hey, you know what? What else we gonna do? I, for one, am not gonna roll over on anything. Not when it comes to the advancement of my people and myself. Um, so while it is a big setback, while it is one that stings a lot. If we being honest, it's just like come on, working people who are just wanting for a decent life should be able to have a shot at it. That's it. I don't think that that's crazy. I don't think that that's an odious burden in terms of public policy and government resources. A fair starting ground, opportunities for people to be able to grow both of their skills and, make their own American dream. That's what it's all about to me, at least. But from a policy perspective, we need it more now than anything ever if Black folks are ever going to have something in this country. Because when you own some studies and some groups have placed the collective of Black wealth in America at less than 1%. When you own that little, that's systemic. Poverty is inherited. When an individual starts at a low socioeconomic class, more often than not, they aren't radically moving up classes. I know that the myth of the American dream is that you can start anywhere and become anything. And for some select folks, that is true. But the reality is this. Once again, white supremacy is a net, not a wall. Just because a couple folks make it through and get that favorable outcome, it doesn't mean that those systemic barriers have been removed for the collective. Just because I'm a fisherman and I have a big net and some of the little minnows are able to swim through, it doesn't mean that my net is broken. When I pull my net up and I have a haul and I got it full of fish, my net is working. And I'll keep throwing my net out and casting it out. And there will be some that squirt through. But I'm going to catch a lot of fish, which is the whole point. And I don't know. I won't belabor the point any longer. I feel that we as a collective have to make a serious policy push and put serious pressure on this administration. And frankly, I know a lot of people will say that this is not the thing to do, but nah, you need to hold your vote hostage. Hey, look, you want power, you want to remain in power, cool. Here are my list of demands. And don't think I won't take the hostage. Don't think I won't sit it out. Don't think I won't get my vote somewhere else. I think that's the approach we need to have, but that's probably a discussion that goes a little bit deeper for another day. But sound off. Let me know your thoughts on it. Um, discourage it, but ultimately, if you're black, at least, not too much has changed. You got work to do. So, peace. Hope y'all have a great weekend. Take care.